welcome to the Summer Conversation series. Today, my guest is Dr. Pastor Caroline Benke-Becker, and we have a really great conversation talking about what exactly prompts someone to go to medical school and then go to seminary and then be a doctor and pastor at the same time. So I hope you will enjoy our conversation. Also, you had the opportunity to submit questions for Dr. Caroline, Pastor Caroline, and so we get to your questions at about the second half of this episode. So I hope you enjoy. Well, welcome, Dr. Pastor Caroline. It's so great to have you here on our Summer Conversation series today. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Amanda. We're going to have a lot of fun today.
Yes, I'm super excited. So as we've talked about, the idea behind the Summer Conversation series is that God has given each of us a reason for being here. Each one of us has been made by God to matter to the world in a way that no one else does. And what that looks like for any individual is a combination of their unique call and their unique responsibilities, which has to do with just where they are, where God has placed them. And that kind of intersects with what they're passionate about, right? What gets each of us out of bed every day. And so for you, Caroline, at some point in your life, you said yes to the call of being an OBGYN. Now, when you said yes to that, we're going to get to that because I do want to know like how you got there. But when you were saying yes to that call, was there like even a blip on your radar that said pastor at any point?
I actually, when I was about 8 years old, we were driving back from church after going to my grandma's house at church and sitting in the back seat of the car. And we had just heard a sermon about heaven. And I rarely listened because the sermons were really boring. But I heard about heaven and I thought, I want to be able to tell people about that. So I leaned over and I told my dad, I said, Dad, I want to be a pastor because then I can tell people about heaven and how wonderful it is. Having grown up in Missouri Synod, which does not in leadership, he looked at my mom and my mom looked back at him and she's like, you better tell her. And he said, well, you know, girls can't be pastors. And because I love my dad so much and he was always right, you know, when you're 8 years old.
Yes.
I said, oh, okay. And then it just never dawned on me, you know, growing up at that point in time.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And it's funny that you say that because when I was 12, I had that exact conversation when I found out that women couldn't be pastors in the denomination that I was raised in, and 12 or 13. And being 12 or 13 is different than being 8. And I was bound and determined to raise a stink, which I did. But anyway, I love that. I love that you had that hard conversation as well. And at 8, you're like, okay, now you knew. Yeah. Well, anyway, that's a different conversation probably. But so being a pastor was off the table, but being a doctor was on the table. And when did you really feel that call in your life?
The story my mom always tells is that when I was 5 years old and saying prayers at night, at the end of prayers, I told her, Mom, I want to be a nurse just like you.
Okay.
And she said, well, honey, I think you could be a doctor. And at that point in time, I never wavered from, oh, okay, well, then I'll be a doctor instead. My mom was very wise because she saw early on I don't have the personality for a nurse. And what was so funny is I did not find out until the night of my medical school graduation the story of why Mom actually said that. She grew up in a time when women, to be in medicine, you had to be a nurse. It just wasn't an option. And in fact, she wanted to actually go to medical school. And her father told her in no uncertain terms he would not pay for it.
Oh.
So that plus she met my dad right after she graduated from high school and fell in love almost immediately. And that there's no way I'm going to do 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, and whatever else. She says, I want to be married more than anything else. Okay. So she went to nurses training instead, which was only 3 years.
Okay.
Her original dream was to be a doctor, and she never told me that until the night of medical school graduation, because she said, I never wanted to influence you to do something that wasn't already in your heart.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was such a gift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I love that. I love that she told you the night before you graduated and kind of gave you the backstory to that.
And as you know, Amanda, raising your kids, you can see personality traits in them, you can see their passions, and you want to kind of guide them, but you don't really make it so prescriptive that they feel like they have to do what mom and dad say.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
because we all know people who've done that too, who have gone into any profession because they think that's what they have to do. Yeah.
uh-huh. Yeah. And don't do it because that's where their call is, that's where their heart is, that's where the passion is. And so it's a hard, so the hard thing is, as a parent, I found to subtly hint. Well, let me tell you, you would suck at this. But you
well, especially for you and I, we're both pretty direct, actually, in a lot of ways. And so there are plenty of times where I find myself just like, okay, if I were going to try and soften this, how would I say it? Because my first thought is always just, bleh.
Yes.
Yeah.
So true.
More than once I've had to backpedal with my kids and other people and say I didn't mean to be quite so honest, but at the end of the day, I still meant it. So. All right. So you decide to go to you go to medical school. What got you into the OBGYN field?
It was, I went to medical school thinking I was going to do general surgery because I love working with my hands. I like fixing things. So that's what I was to assume I was going to do. When I got to medical school and did the, gross anatomy was a ton of fun because it's I'm thinking, this is what I want to do. I need to know this well because this is what I want to do.
Okay.
And when I did my rotation in general surgery as a third-year medical student, I discovered that I loved the act of operating, but I did not like. I said, I don't want to spend 5 years of residency with this kind of people.
Sure.
So, because there really is a definite personality type for each of the different specialties. So then I thought, well, okay, I want to still do surgery, and being, really an advocate for women for forever. I thought, how cool to be able to combine doing surgery with GYN and advocating for women and women's health care. The other thing about OBGYN, which I really, really liked, is the fact that you got to take care of her from the very beginning to the very end. Surgery, you see them in the ER, you tell them what's going on, you operate, and then you never see them again.
Right.
But with OBGYN, if I see somebody in the ER and they need to go to the OR for some reason, I then will continue to follow them. I love that continuity and to be able to develop a relationship over a whole long period of time. So all of those things combined, and that's what kind of led me into OBGYN.
Okay, gotcha. So you were practicing medicine, you get married at some point in there, right? You have 3 girls, and were you living in this area, the Des Moines area at that? Did you start practicing in this area right away?
Yeah, we did our residency and fellowship in Indianapolis, and then when we were all finished, we came back. Both Tom and I had private practices here in Des Moines. Okay.
And so before Pastor Mike knocked on your door to tell you about this startup called Lutheran Church of Hope, how long had you been practicing medicine at that point?
By that time, I had practiced for 2 years in Indianapolis before we moved.
Okay.
It had been about 6 months here in town, so about 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And that's what happened, right? Pastor Mike just knocked on your door to let you know about this startup church.
Yep. We had actually looked for Hope. When we came to town, I was pregnant with baby number 2, and we needed to find a church to get her baptized in. And so we were looking for different churches, and all the ones that we visited were all too big.
Okay.
I had to find Hope actually at one point in time, and the address was just the empty field of the old church building.
Okay.
they hadn't even broken ground. And so
Okay.
they were still meeting in the old office building. And so
Okay.
when Mike rang the doorbell, I said, I've been looking for you guys for 6 months. Where are you? And at that point in time, he and Sally had been in town maybe 3 weeks
Oh,
at that point. So,
wow.
yeah. And he said, well, actually, we hope to be moving to that other place in about a year, but this is where we're meeting right now.
Wow. And so then you tell the story that you were hoping to just sneak in with little kids and go unnoticed, right?
Yes. We had a 2-year-old and a 6-week-old, and we were always late.
Yes.
We slide in when announcements happen, And that's what I was hoping we'd be able to do. And when I suppose there was a back row, because there were just 2 rows, so I guess there's a front and a back.
Yeah,
so,
I guess.
By definition, we were in the back row, but you can't see people there.
No.
And you've got a little toddler who's off, all over the place, and so no sneaking around.
Right. Yes. And so what did that look like then, that call that you felt then to go to seminary? And when you began to realize that's what God was calling you to do, what did that conversation sound like? I'm just really curious. I mean, I can guess, but.
It was a long conversation. Maybe with some words. Yes.
Yeah.
Words.
So you go through that whole process, and you've stepped back completely from medicine at that point. Yes.
Yep. Step back completely.
Yeah. So you go through the process of seminary, you go through the process of ordination, and you are called here to Hope. And I know that there's a lot more details in there that the only people who think those are interesting are people like you and me. Nobody else does. And so then you are here and you're called as a pastor here at Hope, and you're here. And then you start to feel the tug to go back to medicine.
Yeah. It's interesting. Again, it's kind of tied into family, because as you know, Amanda, when your kids are home, they need you during the week and not so much on the weekends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when they start going off to college, they don't need you during the week. It's on the weekends that you can see them, if they need something, that sort of thing. And so we were making that shift. And Amanda, what I do. They are full-time. Saturday, Sunday are full-time. Mm-hmm. Add to that the fact that Tom's work week, when he's not on call, is Monday through Friday. Well, if his big days are Monday through Friday and my big days are Saturday through Sunday, and we've got 2 kids off at college, it was almost as bad as when both of us were on call when the girls were teeny.
Sure. I get that. I do.
Yeah. So it really was, again, not the healthiest combination for the family and for us as a couple. And also at the time, it just happened to be that I had to make a really big decision about whether to maintain I maintained my license, my boarding, and all that stuff during ministry. But there comes a point in time to maintain your boarding, you have to take a long reboarding test exam. And to do that, you got to spend time studying. And if you don't do that, then you're done with medicine. And I had to make a decision where I was going to shut that door forever and ever, or whether I was to take the test and maintain boarding and keep that open. And so that plus the juggling, the juggling with family and what's right, it all kind of coalesced at the same time. And it's like, you know what? I think it's time to step back.
Yeah.
To redirect what the next chapter is.
Right. Yes. So you go back to medicine. And you do that.
Yeah.
And then, is it about 2 years now?
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah. Gosh, it's been about 2.5 years. Yeah.
2.5. Okay. So, about 2.5 years ago, you have then the opportunity. I'm not sure what those conversations sounded like, but basically now you do Hope half-time, and then you do medicine at least half-time, probably a little bit more.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And so, what was that? Was that just, was it just, God stepping in and say, okay, now I want to show you how we're going to do this? Was it a combination of that and just like your personal circumstances, the kids getting a little bit older? What did that look like?
It really was, because I like doing both so much. I couldn't figure out how you could do both, um, and do it even competently.
Right.
And so it just, and the kids are at a point in time where we laugh, they're on the launching pad. They're not completely launched, and they're still on mom and dad's paycheck for some things, not all things.
Yeah.
But my own personal circumstances where I had a whole lot more free time, and I could rethink the legacy that I want to leave. And, because I look at, being in OBGYN and being in ministry, I do think there are life sequences that we get to go through. And especially for women, the first 25 years is figuring out who you are, and getting your education. The next 25 years essentially is establishing and raising your family, establishing your career. And then from about 50 to 75 for women, especially who are healthy, that is when we are the most productive. When you actually look, especially in the business world, women between age 50 and 75 that's when they're senior leadership. That's when they are the most creative as far as arts, those sorts of things, because we've got our kids out of the house.
Right. Yeah.
We're done playing the games, that somebody sometimes wants us to play. And we just really are able to come into our own, in a way that it was much harder when the kids were around,
For sure. Yeah.
So I was able to step back and say, okay, I don't have to be involved so much in the kids all the time, which means I've got time. Where are my skills best used? What kind of legacy do I want to leave? And how am I going to in the next 25 years?
Right.
And so those conversations were really what led me to, okay, if I've got this opportunity to teach at Hope, and I've got this opportunity to teach in medicine, seems to me like a really cool combination that I can use both sets of skills to impact other people. It's kind of how I ended up looking at it. Yeah.
So, do you work for an educational system then, or are you working in a practice, or is it a combination of both? I probably didn't say that very well, but do you know?
No. Really, really good question. Because so what I'm doing is I am teaching in the Mercy Family Medicine Residency Program, teaching them specifically OB and GYN. So so I spend the days with patients, with the residents, and modeling for the residents how to think and how to talk to them, and how to make that go well for them.
Sure. And so then here at Hope, so for folks who don't know, what do you primarily focus on here at Hope then?
I get to focus primarily on Bible teaching, Bible classes, helping out with Alpha, after Alpha, developing things like page 2, those sorts of things. So I get to really focus in on the teaching and the things that for me I think are the most fun. Yeah.
Yep. So you have these residents who are coming out of medical school. And what gives you hope about these students who are coming into medicine now?
They really want to make a difference. They really care. They care not just about the physical health. They're worried about what's happening because of what's happening at work, what's happening in their families. They want to give the best care possible, and they're willing to be open. They're willing. They hear a lot of people tell them they're wrong, and I try to remind them that if I'm not telling them they should do something better, do something different, then they're not learning something. And they are really open to learning a new way. They're very teachable. because they really want to give the best care. They're really enthusiastic, and that's a really cool thing to see.
That is cool. Yeah. So these women and men who you are teaching, what are they, probably like 26 to 30-ish?
They are.
I mean, if they did everything in order, like.
Yeah. So actually, yeah. No. Really good question. It's a really mixed bag. We've got some people who've gone straight through, so they are in their late 20s, and then for some of them, this is a second career. We've got a couple of people there who spent 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years as paramedics and decided that they wanted to do more than just run the ambulance runs. So we've got some people that are in their late 30s and early 40s. Lots of them with kids in elementary and then in junior high. So it's really kind of a neat combination of people who are learning the art of medicine now. Yeah.
That's great. So you've got people who, like we said, you've got people who did it straight through. Mm-hmm. And then you've got people who it took them a little while to figure out, but because it's been what they've been called to do, whether they know that they've been called by God or not is, between them and Holy Spirit. But they felt this call to go into medicine to serve and to help other people to do a good job in that, right? And, because I didn't figure out that I wanted to be a pastor, and I didn't figure out that I didn't figure out for sure and say yes to this idea that I need to go to seminary until I was 35. I had pieced things together for 10 years before that, once my oldest daughter was born. And so I just sometimes think that people get this idea in their head that once you get to a certain point, 35, 40, 45, that it's too late to go back and say yes to whatever it is that God maybe has for you. But you are seeing, and you've shown yourself, that's just not true.
Not true. It's not true. The thing to remember is that, especially for women who are healthy, and I love the statistic, is that if you get to age 50 and you're healthy, no major medical problems, no cancer, no diabetes, high blood pressure sort of thing, the chances of you living to 85 very healthy and with it are exceedingly high, like over 85%.
Okay.
So when you think, when you hit 40, you haven't even if you start, just because the math is easy, if you start work at 20, when you hit, and you can work well until your 80s, when you hit 40, you're not even halfway there.
Right.
So why not?
Right.
Why not? Because I think God will give you different calls depending on the experiences and the wisdom that you have, and where He needs you to be.
Yes.
So I don't think God says for everybody. For some people, I don't think God says this is what you will be forever and ever and ever.
Right.
And nothing's going to change. I just don't see that happening to people.
Right.
It certainly does, but it's not true for everybody.
Right, 100%. I know that when I first started here at Hope in children's ministry, and my kids were little, and Josh wasn't even born yet, and so when I started here, I had an 18-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And then I was here for about 10 months. And then I found out I was going to have another child. And so I was going to have 4 kids, 6 or younger. And at that time, all-day kindergarten was not a given. And my oldest didn't get into all-day kindergarten. And so I was going to be paying for childcare for 4 little kids. And, that math just did not work out. It just didn't, right? So there was a period of time where I took things a year at a time. And sometimes I worked here at Hope. Sometimes I did childcare in my home. Then I would come back to Hope, and I shifted things around and did things part-time. And you do what you have to do, I think, to make the pieces fit together. But in each and every one of those things that I was doing, God was present in that. God used each one of those chunks in the way that it needed to happen, and let me kind of move in and out in a way that was able to love my family well, was able to love the families here at Hope well. And sometimes just because it seems like it's a cluster and it seems like it doesn't make any sense, doesn't mean that's not exactly the way God wants it for right now.
And I'm sure it's true for you, because it was definitely true for me, having to do the balance of the mom and the career and the wife. Each of those aspects of my life strengthened the others. And so it wasn't fun and it wasn't easy, but it taught me a lot.
Yes, and you get really good at deciding what's actually important and what actually isn't.
Yes. Oh, so true. And you know what's interesting is that with our girls now, they've not learned that yet.
Right.
And they're getting there, but none of them are married. None of them have kids, and so they're still all three of them are still training somewhere.
Yeah.
So they still are kind of in the student mindset. This is the way it's going to go. This is the way the semester's going to go. This is the way training's going to go. And motherhood taught me flexibility like nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and they're just in that striving stage by the nature of the business, right? They have to continually prove their worth to somebody because somebody is deciding if they get to move on to the next thing or not.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's another thing for where we are. We don't have to play that game anymore, really.
Right. Yes.
We have the great privilege of being able to say no.
Yes.
Yeah. And they just aren't in that stage of life yet.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. I want to get onto these questions before we run out of time. Okay. So these were questions that women asked. I put it out on social media to let folks know that we were going to be talking today. And these are the questions that they wanted to get answers to. All right. Okay. So the first one, I love this. What's the deal with night sweats? Can anything be done to treat, and why do they happen?
Oh, aren't they lovely? Yes. Night sweats. Number one, yes, they can be treated. First of all, they have to do with when you are in the perimenopausal years. Remember, perimenopause can be the 1 to 2 to 3 years prior to real menopause, which means you've stopped having your periods. During that time, because your hormone pattern is shifting dramatically, it will affect the temperature control area in your brain. Because of that, you will have these hot flashes, these night sweats, because your body thinks all of a sudden your hormones are telling it you're really, really cold. So therefore we need to do all of these things to warm you up again.
Okay.
So of course, they always happen, and I don't know why, they always happen in the most inconvenient times. When you're meeting somebody new, when you have a great presentation that you have to do, you're in the middle of a case in the OR, sleeping at night, they always happen at the most inconvenient times. I don't know why, it just seems to work that way.
Is stress related to it, or we don't really know?
It can be,
okay.
But not necessarily. Sometimes you can be just as happy as a clam, chilling out, and then whoosh,
all of a sudden
everything goes. Definitely, they can be managed. Hormone replacement therapy for people who, and most women, could actually have hormone therapy. There's a few caveats to that.
Yeah.
But most women, you can get the hot flashes controlled so that you can actually have a life.
Okay.
And
through hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All
very,
right.
Very treatable.
Okay. All right. Good deal. So because sleep is so important, right? Like if this is getting messed up for you, it might be worth looking at, talking to your doctor about.
And a lot of times people will talk about, in the perimenopausal years, you're more forgetful and all that stuff. It's not, you're losing your mind. It's usually because your sleep pattern is off. And if you're sleep deprived, of course, you can't make good decisions. You're crabby and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, 100%. We might come back to that with one of these later questions now that you say that. Okay, next one. If my periods are crazy heavy, and that's probably subjective, but if my periods are crazy heavy, can that affect my health in other ways?
Oh, certainly. Certainly. I mean, if they're that heavy, you can become anemic. And that will, so you're tired, you don't have any energy, sleeping isn't as good. All of those sorts of things can be affected. So if you're having really heavy periods, again, those can be treated. The other part of that is not just your physical health, but mental health. I mean, if you are having periods where you're flooding, going through all of your protection and clothes,
it's the worst.
change clothes, that sort of thing, it affects the ability to take care of your family, to do the job that you're called to do, all of that stuff. Because if you know that on days 2, 3, and 4 of your cycle, you can't leave the house, or you need to know where every bathroom is along the way, that's a big problem, especially with anxiety. So yeah, those are things to definitely get seen and dealt with.
So that is something that can be managed. Probably it's all probably a hormone balance thing as well, right?
Yeah, and the nice thing is that we've got a lot of different types of treatment now that can really help manage those.
Sure. Because I think for a lot of people, I think that what they expect their doctor to say is, well, we can put you on the pill. And maybe they don't want to do that. I feel like that has kind of a reputation of being the cure-all, but then there's also risks associated with that. So you're saying there are different things that people can ask their doctor about.
Quite honestly, I always love starting off with the pill because it's easy to start, it's easy to stop.
Okay.
And for the most part, in women who are otherwise healthy, that the risk factors are, it's a lot safer. Honestly, it's a lot safer to be on the pill than to be pregnant.
Yeah, I didn't mean to laugh. I understand. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
So I like starting with the pill just because it's easy to start and stop.
Okay.
But the pill is not the only thing. That's for sure. There's a lot of great options out there.
Cool. Okay, so I love this one. I want to hear the answer to this too. Why do I crave stuff that I know is unhealthy, like sweets or chocolate, around my period? I mean, honestly, why don't I crave, I didn't ask this question, but I could. Why don't I crave broccoli? That would just be awesome if I could think broccoli was amazing. So truly, why is it tends to be the carbs and the salt? Why are those the things that I want? As
McDonald's French fries,
yes,
chocolate,
yeah, dipped in a chocolate shake. What is that?
Give me a shake and the fries from McDonald's. What is happening at the time that you're, just a couple of days before your period starts and during your period, you're bottoming out on both of your hormones. Remember, women have the 2 hormones, the estrogen and the progesterone. At the end of your cycle. So, and remember, the first day of your period is considered the first day of your cycle. So at the end of your previous cycle, all of those hormones are bottoming out, which is telling your body that you are getting ready to prepare for another baby. Okay. So your body says, we need to eat. And you think about this just from an evolutionary standpoint, salt, sweets, carbs are things that really will unfortunately bulk you up.
Yeah.
As far as calorie wise, because your body's getting ready for, okay, 2 weeks from now, I could be starting a new baby. The other thing that happens is because it tends to interact with the hunger hormones, I guess is the easiest way to talk about it. As those 2 hormones are bottoming out, it affects your hunger hormones as well. So it's like a double whammy. The hunger hormones and your body telling you, okay, now we need to be ready to have another baby. And it just is the give me food, give me chocolate reaction that our body has.
Well, that's fantastic.
Well, you can't win. So don't beat yourself up.
Right. But don't women also tend to report that then as those hormones start to go back up, your appetite then does tend to be suppressed. So if you freak out about the scale before you get your period, usually you'll see it. If you just pay attention to what your body is saying, you'll balance back out after.
Exactly. Yeah. And then if you like to eat the extra large fries at McDonald's like I do, then you'd retain water anyway.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Okay. Oh, okay. So what age should young women, girls, what age is it time to visit an OBGYN for a checkup?
Ooh, I love this question. You do not need to have your first GYN exam with a pap smear until you turn 21. Okay. That I have a lot of moms come in and are just shocked to hear that. And a lot of their daughters are jumping up and shouting hallelujah.
Told you so, Mom. Yeah, right?
So the recommendations for that have changed. So the first thing that you should get a pelvic exam pap smear is when you turn 21.
Okay.
But what I like to do is have young women come in when they're, 13, 14, 15, in that ballpark, just to be able to talk to them about, okay, this is not a scary place. I'm on your side. Periods are not fun, but we can make them work. Let's talk about sexual health. Let's talk about being honest about what your goals and dreams are in life. And if you want to do these amazing things that God has called you to do, which every single one of us has, then how can I make sure that you get to those goals without a detour?
Right.
So I like to meet young women when they're not in crisis, so that they know that this is a safe place.
Yes.
So I think usually about 14, 15 is a good time.
Okay. Awesome. Good deal. And that is to get to know one another and just establish a relationship.
Yeah.
But GYN exam doesn't come until
It's
21.
just, I talk about, this is just a meet and greet. Let's talk about your medical history, because if there are things that you need to be thinking about, if you've got a young woman who's diabetic or something like that, then there are other things to discuss. But usually it's just a meet and greet and tell me about your dreams and how can I help you get there.
Cool. All right. Okay. This question says, I've heard that as women age, anxiety becomes more prevalent physiologically. Is this true or a rumor? And if it's true, what's the reasoning behind this?
There's really no physiologic reason for increased anxiety, but it is societal based. In other words, in our society today, women are, as women age, their value to society tends to decrease. I mean, where does everybody put their money and all of their attention? It's to women in their teens and 20s, because we've hypersexualized young women.
Right.
And as you move out of those stages, then you have to kind of rethink who you are. The other thing that happens, especially in our culture, is that as women get older, they in your 30s, you're juggling a career, you're juggling a family. In your 40s, you're juggling career and teens. Okay, so let's talk about anxiety. What they've discovered is that women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s are actually happier and less stressed than beforehand, because women tend to, at that point in time, again, this is stereotypically, have come to their own. They know how to say no. They know what they're good at. They've got experience, and their families are pretty much launched. Right. And so if you are doing the things that you enjoy doing, that anxiety tends to decrease. And it's not physiologic as much as it's kind of cultural, societal, that tends to put those burden on women especially.
I would suspect that when your children don't need you anymore in the way that they did even when they were 17 and living at home, but when they don't need you anymore, if one has not done the work to be ready for that, of course there's going to be anxiety.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why, the empty nest syndrome is a real deal, because you have to reevaluate who I am and what kind of contribution am I making. And oh my gosh, the only things that we used to talk about at dinner at night are the kids. Now this person sitting across the table, do I really know you anymore? And so if you haven't done that continual work on relationships and who you are, and what you were created to be and to do, that can be really difficult.
Right. Yeah, 100%. So going back to the question, physiologically, there's not a correlation there necessarily, but at any age, anxiety is real, and is something that we all will face at some point or another. It's whether or not we do that in a healthy way or not.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Why is it harder to lose weight as we get older? And related to that, what's the deal with the inner tube around the middle?
Oh, so true. Remember that after age 18, your basal metabolic rate, in other words, how quickly you deal with calories, decreases 1% per year. Okay? So just do the math. let's just, to make it easy, because make the numbers easy, your ability to deal with calories at age 20 versus age 40, it's already decreased by 20%.
Oofta.
Yeah. So we have to make, remember when you were a teenager, you could eat anything and just the worst things and scale wouldn't move anywhere.
Yeah.
Those were the golden years.
And you're too dumb to know how awesome it is.
Exactly. So just because your metabolic rate is decreasing slightly every year, that's one thing. Your metabolic rate changes in the perimenopausal and postmenopausal years. So that happens. Plus, the most recent studies are showing is that we in OBGYN are not being very good at helping women gain the appropriate amount of weight during pregnancy. So rather than gaining the 25 to 35 pounds that you should, we tend to, and let's be honest, it's really easy to gain, 40 or 45 pounds. The reason why that's a big deal, not just for the baby, but what happens is it's hard to lose all of that. And so what we do is we come into the next pregnancy with an extra 5 or 10 pounds. And then, so it's just this snowball effect.
Yeah.
So your metabolic rate is decreasing just because of getting older, perimenopausal years. And then we kind of mess up sometimes during pregnancy. And all of a sudden you get to be in your mid to late 40s, early 50s, and you're thinking, what happened here?
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially what's happening.
Yeah.
What you will notice in women will either carry their weight around their belly or in their hips.
Yeah.
And it has to do with how the different fat cells are distributed, and that's genetics. You can blame your mother and your father for that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and going back to kind of what we were talking about earlier too, with the night sweats, and if you're not sleeping well, and your body's just not going to let go of excess body fat. It just won't.
Right. Because what's so interesting is to have a normal, the hunger hormones, there's one that increases your appetite and one that decreases it. If you're not sleeping well, guess which one is getting hammered? The one that decreases your appetite. So that one drops off the radar, and your one that makes you want to eat increases.
Goes
so
up. Yeah.
Sleep makes a huge difference in being able to control your appetite.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't help that the things we want to eat the most of tend to be the things that are difficult to stop after 1 or 2 pieces or whatever. Like when they put a serving size on a bag of chips. I mean, honestly, who are they kidding? Right? Yeah, all of those things. Okay, last question.
Just the one thing I want to say about that, because there's so much poor body image around that, is what I tell women all the time is that if this were easy, we would all do it.
Amen, sister. Yep.
So grace, and treat your body the best you can, and be kind to it.
Yes. Yeah. I'm going to do one of these conversations where I talk to myself and talking about body image because it is, that's huge. It's huge. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. So last question. Sex is not as big of a deal to me as it is to my husband. I can go for longer without it and not be one bit bothered. So why, Jesus, why?
Oh my gosh. What I tell women is 90+% of sex is in your head. Okay. So for women, and again, painting with a broad brush, for most men, the way that they know that they're loved is they have sex and then they feel loved. For women, it's I want to feel loved and then I'm interested in sex. So there's that disconnect. Just, I don't know why.
Right.
It's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the fall, I would argue.
I guess, right? Yep.
So the way that we connect sex and love, feeling loved, are different. Then you add the fact that for women, you need to feel loved before you want to have sex. Well, feeling loved means that you're well rested, that you're feeling affirmed, that you feel like your body is attractive. You don't have spit up all over you, or you're worried about the teenager who knows when they're coming home. All of those things will decrease your sex drive dramatically. Are there some physiologic reasons for it? Yes, but the vast majority of reason for difference in sex drives is relationship.
Sure.
And so if there's relationship issues, they usually will first show up in the frustrations with sex.
Okay. So, so doing what we're able to open those doors of communication and talk about those things would be the most helpful. And they're also the most difficult conversations to have.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I have women come into the office and I'll say, I need hormones for my sex drive, I will say that, maybe 1% of women do. Since you're probably not 1%, we'll do the hormones, that kind of that sort of thing. But,
we'll look at
let's look at what your life is like. I mean, if you're only getting 4 hours of sleep at night and you are running 100% and you're not getting help and you're not feeling affirmed, gosh, no kidding. Because and the way I explain it is your body is smart. If you're stressed, if you're having a hard time holding it together, your body says, the last thing that you need is another baby. Right. Therefore, I'm going to tamp down your sex drive so that you don't completely overwhelm yourself.
Sure. All right. Well, great. Thank you for taking the time to answer those questions. And I so appreciate the women who submitted them, and I appreciate you taking the time to respond to them. So,
Great.
Yep. Well, so Caroline, thank you so much for your time today. This was a lot of fun. And if people are looking for you, you are here at Hope teaching a couple different classes, and hopefully we get to the point sooner or later where we're able to do those face-to-face again. But I'm sure whatever that looks like, that they'll be able to find you around a little bit more this fall in some way, shape, or form, virtually or face-to-face. So awesome.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, Caroline. I appreciate it so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for asking.
You bet. Thanks for joining us today for this conversation with Dr. Caroline. We will be back next week with a new episode and a new guest. So take care. We'll see you soon.